Hey friends, welcome back to our latest episode of Card Speak. Whether you're watching or listening, you may know by now that I'm your host, Captain Nate Pizzolatto, the former Captain Jackpot, man of many names. And today have another guest I'm delighted to bring y'all. A name I'm sure you're quite familiar with in the poker world. Someone I've known in one capacity or another for nearly 20 years. He's been involved with things such as Octopi Poker, his latest, his own app. I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Is it Chemset?
Chemset, yeah.
Perfect. I'm not going to pronounce it wrong. He's by and large known in the poker world as Luckychewy. But if you want his, legal name, would like to welcome Andrew Lichtenberger to the show. Yeah,
Thanks, man.
yeah.
Thanks for
Welcome,
having
bud.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming, man. This is it'll be fun. It'll be good to catch up.
Yeah, indeed it will be.
Yeah, how you doing? What's new?
I'm pretty good. I have some time off right now from poker.
Nice.
I play again in a week, and just nice to get some time with family and friends and catch up on things. I like the schedule that being a professional tournament player affords me, where you kind of go pretty hard for a couple weeks or a couple months in the case of the World Series, and then you have some downtime in between where there's really nothing going on and you can sort of just do as you please.
Yeah, for sure. The on off. I always like that too. Especially because of my time off. And now I have friends all over the world. A lot of my old non-poker friends are back in Texas. I got people like you in Vegas. I got, it's like, if I could do that again, then yeah, take 2 or 3 weeks, go visit with friends and family, then get back to work.
Yeah, no, it is very convenient.
And I was going to say, especially for you, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you're relatively recently a new father, is that correct?
Yep, my daughter's just around 8.5 months.
Oh, wow.
She's
Congratulations.
adorable. Thank you. Yeah,
that's great.
It's really fun, as she becomes more interactive. When she smiles, when she laughs, completely melts me. And she's just kind of getting ready to start crawling. She's rolling pretty aggressively to get around from point A to point B. She's a great eater. She loves food, which is, yes, very convenient as a parent.
Yeah, picky is tough, but as a fellow food lover, I get it.
Yeah, same.
I don't think I eat like an 8-month-old anymore, but leave that to other people to judge, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, that's got to be a great, especially like you said with your schedule, it's got to be great to be able to just take time to step away for a while and spend time with her and.
Yeah, all the little moments. It's really nice. Every Saturday we do swim lessons with her, which really is just bringing her in the pool with adult supervision and kind of like swirling her around. Occasionally you dunk them, just sing some nursery rhymes in a group, and it's cool though. It's the beginning of activities with your child, which will persist for many years.
Yeah, probably the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Hopefully the rest of your life, not the rest of theirs, because that would imply some tragedy that we're not.
Fair, yeah.
Let's all wish Andrew's child a long, healthy, happy life. I didn't mean to there, but I don't know. I guess I'm the kind of guy who thinks of all possibilities before.
Yeah. It's a testament to your extreme imagination.
Yeah.
And perhaps dark sense of humor.
I didn't mean to start. Oh, she's 8. Great. Hopefully she doesn't die before you. That's just immediately where the conversation goes. See, this is why. Yeah, that's exactly the sort of thing that makes me think I'd be so good at this. Something else. This reminded me of, because I guess I don't think I know your partner. Wife, partner.
No, I don't think you've met her.
Yeah. Something I'm curious about, if you don't mind talking a little bit, is how you met her, because, I know with the poker, there's some people who meet through poker, some who entirely removed from poker, the gambling world at all.
So I guess I got introduced to her ex actually through a mutual friend. But it was not poker related. My friend was a poker player. And And yeah, she's not in poker. She understands it now that we're together. Uh, and she appreciates it. It's, just sort of naturally an interesting game. But she's not really the type of person that loves to sit still for long periods. And I think she probably could do well at poker, but I don't think it really speaks to her interests, especially at this point in time.
Right.
But she's an Oriental medical doctor and has
cool.
an acupuncture clinic here in Vegas.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
That's nice.
She enjoys it, and it's nice. Her patients, they get relief from her, and it's nice to be of service.
Absolutely, yeah. Helping people is great. That's
Yeah.
one of the things I have to remind myself sometimes when I'm, here and get in my own head too much, and
it's a great way to kind of boost
just,
your own mood.
Yeah, just doing something for other people. Honestly, this is not the way I wanted to find out, but I probably mentioned my dad passed a few years ago, and I visited a couple times in the hospital. And just there's something really satisfying just being able to help him wherever I can, even though it's not something I ever would have thought beforehand that I want to do or like to do. But it's just or maybe it's just for me because I'm kind of a neurotic stew that getting to focus on something outside myself is really helpful.
Yeah, it can be grounding for sure. And I mean, I think even this podcast is a good example of it, where you just never know how the content you're making is going to touch people in different ways, different times in their life. And I'm just a big advocate, I guess, for engaging with the world around you in whatever way feels authentic, because you should never underestimate the ripple effect, like how one small interaction or act of kindness can really change the world.
Yeah, it's true. Like I'm 100% with you on that, and that's something I always try to, remind myself is you never know what you're going to do that's going to make a difference. So just trying to keep doing your
100%.
best, and doing the right thing. My favorite story in this regard. I don't know how much music you listen to, or if you know who Nick Lowe is. This is going to be a bit of a tangential story. He is a singer-songwriter who's first made fame in the 70s. He's from England. A pretty good singer-songwriter, honestly. A lot of sort of pub rock or power pop type music. But he wrote a song called What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding. You may or may not have heard of it. The most famous version was recorded by Elvis Costello. But then there was another version recorded by a guy named Curtis Stigers, which wasn't that notable in itself, other than the fact that it appeared on the soundtrack to The Bodyguard, the movie from the early 90s, which most famous for Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You. And so
I do know that song.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's so
I'm not a music buff, but I do know that one.
I was like, that launched that album to one of the best-selling albums of all time. So yeah, I hope so. And so he didn't know about it at all, Nick Lowe, but then one day he gets a £1 million check in the mail. He's like, "What's this? Oh, it's your royalties for this. You wrote a song. It's on an album that sold like 15 million copies. So here's your money." Yeah, and you never know. Cool. For something that he wrote like 15, 20 years before. Yeah, you just never know. And,
that is a great example of exactly that. Yeah, you just don't know. And I think that it can be a trap of the ego where we think we know, and it can hold us back in various ways. But possibilities are endless, truly.
Yeah, and I try to, that's something I try to, not, damn it, we're getting into so many topics I'm interested in. It's like, that's something I try not to, get ahead of myself thinking what will or won't work, because especially me, because I'll be honest, my self-confidence can be a little shaky for a lot of reasons. Maybe we'll get into some of them later. And so it's like, if I start thinking about things that only do things I'm sure will work, I'd probably never do anything. And it just, you sometimes you just have to trust that you'll either get better or make something good, or the flip side of that is when I do really put my full effort into something, it usually works out. Whatever.
Yeah, and you enjoy it, whatever you're doing. I think that that's kind of a way that I've lived my life once I came to terms with this, that I think it's best to just do things for their own sake, not because of what you think you will or won't get out of them, because, again, you just don't know. Yeah. And if you're enjoying the process, then you're, more than likely enjoying your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is nice.
The destination can matter, but life is the journey. It's all the moments along the way. And so, you want to be able to enjoy those. I certainly I certainly did, but in some ways, there are times I had no destination and was just along for the ride, which
And that could be exciting too.
that can be exciting. It can have its downsides in the sense of at a certain point in your life, and you probably want to be the one making the decisions for it instead of
Well, that's definitely
going
true.
with other people's decisions. Right, exactly. So it took me a while to reconcile those two, but I think I do pretty well. A pretty good
Nice.
job now. And yeah, like you're just to tie this all back to the show itself. It's like, yeah, that's one of the things when I started this. I'm like, I don't know, I'm nervous. Am I going to be a good host or whatever? It's like, so what? Like you're the host. Your job is to make the guests comfortable. Like
Yeah,
then
and you
have
learn
fun with
as
them.
you
Yeah.
go and as you do. Like you can't really learn without not doing the thing. There's no better practice than it
Mm-hmm.
itself.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to jump right in. And
And no one starts off an expert, right?
yeah, that's what I figured. Not, maybe someone does, but I feel like yeah, I've done enough. Other like shows. Like I've done a little Twitch streaming. I had a couple other little podcasts, and I did stand up for a few years in Houston and I mentioned. So it's like
Well, that's pretty bold.
yeah, and I've acted, before or back not since like college days, but so it's like yeah, I'm like comfortable enough on screen on mic. I think that excuse me, that if anyone has a shot at this, it might as well be me, right? So let's
Yeah,
go for it.
absolutely. Totally. And I think it's like not uncommon that humans put a lot of pressure on themselves,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that that's generally not super warranted. I mean, in something like poker, it's a balancing act because you do
Yeah.
want to make sure that you're being honest with yourself and self-critical to a point. But I don't know. I suppose that's been a recent theme of my life where I've observed how critical I can be of myself and just
Mm-hmm.
generally the world at large. Like, yeah, I think that there's probably an undue pressure that humans put on themselves in a
Yeah.
lot of cases, and then of course there's some cases where people don't put enough pressure on themselves. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
I was thinking of both of those because I've had both of the less more of the putting too much pressure on myself over the course of my life, and but definitely there are times in poker I probably wasn't putting enough pressure on myself, in the back in in the boom days after hitting it, to not putting enough pressure to keep getting better or to be responsible with my bankroll and things like
Mm.
that, and and so it takes a nice balance because I guess I figured, oh, I keep winning and I have money. Why wouldn't I keep winning? And
Yeah, no, it
but
is a balancing act.
doesn't always work that way. Yeah, on that time, I guess I'm curious. Like, how do you deal with when you feel like you're putting too much pressure on yourself or unduly?
Hmm.
Do you have
Yeah,
any?
good question. I suppose I try to just take a step back and recognize that, um, again, like part of life is making mistakes and learning. It's sort of like baked into the process of success, if you can call it
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, you just never start off knowing everything,
Right.
and it's necessary that you slip and fall some amount of times. Ideally, you limit the amount of times that that happens
Yeah.
or
Or
mitigate the downside associated
how
with it.
far you fall. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I just think that it sort of just comes with the territory,
Mm-hmm.
and the more we kind of acknowledge that, the more we can just take it in stride.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's something I've had to really. I've been trying to put into practice the last couple of years in particular. It's just like being a little more forgiving for making myself for making mistakes or for things just because I know something now that I didn't know 15, 20 years ago doesn't mean I should have known it or like it was reasonable for me
Of
to
course.
expect to know it. And I struggle with some of this too. Just I don't know, growing up, I guess a lot was expected of me, kind of in that gifted kid kind of way. And so, but the flip side is, if you're less than perfect in anything, you get berated because you're smart enough that you should be perfect, and then that kind of gets you discouraged from those kind of moments you're talking about, where it's like, well, I don't want to do anything where I'll make a mistake because then I just get yelled at,
Right. That's a bit of a
or
vicious cycle.
made fun of, if it's something like I don't think I should be doing. So yeah, it took me a while to get over that, and but it's I mean I guess it's always a process, and I'm not going to sit around and blame the past for everything, but
No, of course.
it's
Yeah.
all learning experience, right? Like just trying to
Definitely.
get
And
better.
that's a good way to take it.
Yeah, just caring for yourself and knowing what you want and knowing what you like, knowing what you need out of life, and where you can get it, whether that's family, friends, relationships,
For
work,
sure.
what have you.
And it's especially important to have those interpersonal relationships and connections, because sometimes we can
Mm-hmm.
be a lot harder on ourselves than we would be on other people that we love and care for, and that's usually quite telling.
Yeah.
um, Not that it's always a bad thing, because sometimes you need to give yourself that tough love where maybe people
Mm-hmm.
close to you won't necessarily want to do that. um,
Mm-hmm.
but it is also indicative of the fact that sometimes, we can be mean to ourselves, where it's like, okay, well, we wouldn't treat other people that we care about that way. Why would we do that to ourselves? And that's, at least in my experience,
No,
been somewhat
absolutely.
revealing.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a valuable perspective to have, and to just step back and remember, because especially, I guess another way to put it, you've known yourself for longer than you've known anybody, for lack of a better way to put it, right?
True.
It's
Yeah.
like, I've got friends, some of my best friends are still from college, and I've known them for over 25 years. My wife and I started dating 17 years ago,
Mm.
but I'm 44. I'm going to be 45 later this year. That is still longer than either of those time lengths. In fact, all that was it technically in my adult life. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes it does help to sometimes those early years, yeah, you get ingrained in ways to treat yourself that you wouldn't treat other people, and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to back out of it and just, yeah, being too, especially um getting back to our ostensible vocations, or at least one of them, especially in something like tournament poker, where it's like, yeah, you're gonna lose like 99% of these, so like, don't beat yourself up every time you do, or be honest, at least, if you lose it because you cold 4-bet 7-2 off all in, then yeah, you probably need to do some serious self-evaluation. But if you just got unlucky or had a bad run or something, then these things happen, and I've had to learn not to ping pong between, oh my god, this is going to work, I can do this, I can do anything, and a week later, oh my god, this is a failure, what was I thinking, I'm never going to make it. uh if I can be
Yeah. Yeah.
not just being honest, but frankly the mental and emotional stability is really important to success, I think. Not in poker, anything really. Just
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to be humble in victory and gracious in defeat, to try to kind of find a more equanimous experience tying together the ups and the downs.
yeah,
Because if you get super exuberant when you win and feel like you're on top of the world, you kind of become the Icarus archetype, right? Where
yeah,
eventually, it will turn in one way or another. Um, but I think that there's always a lesson embedded in those losing streaks, and at least
mm-hmm.
that's how I've related to them over the years. Anytime I feel like I'm having uh, somewhat statistically unlikely or improbable negative outcomes, where I'm just losing for a
Mm-hmm.
prolonged stretch, I'm always looking for what the deeper meaning is, trying to uncover what am I meant to learn from this, because I really do believe that reality or outer reality is a reflection of our internal state of being to a very large extent. And I just think that's an empowering way to go through life, because I never want to fall into a victim type mentality, because if you don't own your experience, then you can't really change anything.
Yeah,
And I don't like feeling like I'm a passenger in my life. I want to be in the driver's seat.
100%. Yeah, I agree with all that. And in my own experience, yeah, it's been a little frustrating. The highs, yeah. One thing Sam and I talked about is like, one thing, you have to not let the highs get you too high. In part, especially as a poker player, like when you have a big win, there's that temptation to just go spend a lot of it, even though that could be a big part of your income for the year, and you're going to need it through the lean times, just because you're riding the high of winning, and
Sure. And even if you're
playing
not
the discipline of
spending,
that.
it
Yeah.
can still just like allow the ego to swell, and you feel this invincibility and the winner's tilt and all the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
that's like almost more dangerous.
Yeah, something I'm quite familiar with after my own early success, where it's like, well, I'm winning, I can just do whatever and keep winning because I'm a winning player, and it's not really how it works. It's like, it's similar to the questions I people you know, because you see it, I don't know, movies, TV, or even real people that are like, am I a good person? Like, it's like, I don't know. What is that?
Mm,
Are you doing good things or bad things, right? Like, I don't see it like as being a part, you know, it's what you do that matters. It's like, am I a winning player? Well, I can be if I'm playing to the best of my ability, or probably even my B game, to be honest. I'm not a winning player if I go sit in high stakes games and think I'm a winning player so I can do what I want and win. Like,
right.
you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, we're not. Yeah, I don't like to define myself though like that or label myself or anything either, because then I start, you know, you start thinking about, you know, that you are inherently something, and then you don't really work on being that something. Or also, just in my experience, I found a lot of times people who insist on labels for themselves are often the opposite of what they claim to be. Like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, like a great example, you know, just especially where I come from, you know, the kind of people who are always like, you know, I don't really like drama, are the ones who are always finding themselves in the middle of it. You know what I mean? Just one example.
Yeah.
Like,
I think knowing yourself is a bit of a paradox where you do want to introspect to the point where you understand what's authentic to you, but then you also have to remain open to the fact that you're always changing, growing, evolving, and you don't know what that next stage of life is always going to look like. So it's
yeah,
again, a balancing act, I feel.
yeah, totally. And yeah, I kind of feel the same way. And I'm trying to think about how I want to word this, but it's like, yeah, that state of constant change too is something it's something I became fond of saying some years ago. You know, in life, the only constant is change. And
True.
yeah, and so I try to, yeah, trying to keep that balance. Or when it's just like I said, another reason I don't like labels. I'm like, I don't even like having a name. If I didn't have to, I'd just go be the man with no name or whatever. But I would call
You
myself
could.
the man with no name. But
2026. Go
yeah,
for it, bro.
yeah, just it's just like, because then, you know, everything, you know, you have a name and or label any kind, and then people, you know, treat you like the name or the label and not, you know. I'm also thinking about this because going back to Houston next week for a thing in my old university, saying goodbye to our old dorm where which went up in '68, and we all became, you know, became sort of a part of the, you know, where I went to school. They had that sort of residential college system, so we became fond of it, and like just how like ugly and like brutalist it was sort of became part of our like affection for it. And they're
Mm,
finally gonna shut it down and replace it, so they're having a goodbye ceremony next week. And I was like, I haven't done anything there in a while. I want an excuse to visit my
that's
friends in
nice.
Texas, so I'm gonna fly down next week. Yeah, but it
That'd be
does.
fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun, and but it does get me thinking, you know, about this. Like I said, you know, I've got some friends that I'm, you know, like lifelong friends with from those days. I still talk to weekly, and they know who I am. I might run into people I haven't seen in, you know, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, maybe 20
Yeah.
years for all I know. Maybe people that, you know, when I was supposed to graduate college in 2003, and it's very possible I might see people I haven't seen since then. And so it's like, you know, who are they going to be trying to interact with? You know, me now or the image of Nate they had 10, 20 years ago? And that's sort of exactly what, you know, that's kind of what I'm thinking of, you know, because I don't think, you know, I'm not that person anymore in a lot of ways. In a few ways,
Yeah.
I am, but, you know, frankly, I think honestly, one of the biggest changes is just having more self respect and dignity, I guess. And so that's part of why I
Those are
worry
good
about,
changes.
yeah, well, that's
Or
part of why I worry about some,
positive.
yeah, running into people who are like, oh, it's the, you know, class clown from whatever. And it's like, well, not anymore. I mean, I'm still funny, I think. No, I am. I am. I think I'm sure on some. If there's some objective way to measure this, I definitely am. But
Well, if you make people laugh, that's a
yeah,
good
yeah,
start.
exactly right. Like that's the base. That's the litmus test, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but you know, I don't want to be, you know, treated like the person who, you know, was goofing off and probably fucking up schoolwork and, you know, doing too much weed and once in a while speed. If I had to get work, if I had to get work done, I wasn't like an addict. But you know, I'm a different person. You know, more mature.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm any
No, I
less.
think to that point, like really we're a new person every moment. We
Mm-hmm.
just feel this continuity because that's where our consciousness was, where our perspective was, and we can, recall what we were like a moment ago, a week, a year, 10
Mm-hmm.
years. But really we're always a new person. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just again think that that's not just a truth, but also a helpful way to conceptualize, I guess, the self, because it empowers change, empowers, making different decisions and just growing, really, in whatever direction feels preferable.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to. That's a great way to put it, because you got me thinking about several things. It's like, yeah, we are all kind of ships of Theseus when it comes down to it. I think I've even seen. I don't know if you're familiar with the metaphor. Or
I'm familiar.
Yeah,
You said Theseus?
Ship of Theseus.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
Yeah, it's okay. For our listeners who may not be, although, well, I think our listeners are intelligent, cultured, and probably handsome people.
Of course, naturally. How could they not be?
It's a ship that gradually over time has each individual part replaced. So it's like, is it still this, while remaining the same ship? But it's like, is it still the same ship? It has none of its original parts, and in some ways we're like that. I've even heard.
Yeah.
I've heard. I don't know if this is true. I haven't looked it up. Jamie, can you check that for us? There's something. I couldn't resist.
That's good.
Thank you. But it's like our cells, like, we have like a whole new, completely new cell. I don't know if the word cells, just they're every 7 years or so. So it's like, literally, in terms of matter, we're not the same. And, I think that's maybe even part of why consciousness is not fully understood by the sciences, because, how do we stay on this consistent continuum of our experience when, the materials that make up the things that are supposed to keep that consistency are constantly changing?
Yeah, we both are the same and also are very much not the same. Yeah. It's something that's probably going to be clarified in time as science becomes more interested or focused on such things, I would imagine.
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be cool.
We're more capable of measuring things.
Yeah, and I've never been very good at science. I was pretty good at science. I have not been very good at science since I got to a serious academic. Since college, basically.
Poker's a science.
Yeah, well, and in art. It's a lot of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much an art.
Well, that is funny that you bring it up, because I'm like, I remember I started struggling in math at school about the time we got to calculus, and then I was like, well, poker, yeah, it's math, but it's great. It's arithmetic. I can do arithmetic. That's easy. I don't have to can find the integral of some wave function. I just have to calculate the pot odds and what have you, and how many big blinds are in my stack, and I can handle that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, what I would say though, like two of the areas that most interest me, I guess, are that kind of, maybe it's neuroscience or something else, where what is the actual nature of consciousness and the universe itself? What theoretical physics, is learning or discovering, and I don't know at all, because the last time I checked into it, I remember them saying like, well, the universe makes sense if we like assume that there's just like 98% of it is dark matter we can't measure or understand, but somehow that balances this all out. And it's like, man, 98% we don't understand, It's like,
that's a lot. That's a big piece of the pie.
Yeah, and I would say I'm not like particularly religious per se, but it is like there's so much, it's hard to think you know everything when there's so much nobody knows, when even, the most studied people on the planet are like, we understand maybe 3% of the universe. Maybe, if that much.
This is actually something I'm very fascinated in.
Yeah.
As you're probably aware, I have some, I guess, outspoken views on luck, probability. I just don't, I don't know what I don't know, but I feel like in general, the poker community does not and the world to a large extent does not understand luck very well at all.
Yeah.
And I find it somewhat uncompelling that randomness is ontological. And I would like to, and I've began, sort of planting seeds to put on a ChemSet coherence poker event where I'd like to measure biomarkers and try to draw parallels between what's happening internally and how that is reflective of the external experience of playing the game and the outcomes that happen, and luck to a large extent. So I'm very curious to see where that goes. It might be a dud, or maybe it will at least show us something that we don't currently think. Either way, I'm going to do it because I don't know anybody else who will, and I feel it's kind of just authentic for me to explore that.
Yeah, Okay, well, I'm kind of curious about this because I know a little bit about what you've done, but like, when you say you don't, people don't understand luck, I guess, what is your framework for understanding it, or what do you think, or even if it's just a hypothesis about how these things work?
Yeah, so again, kind of having a lot of years spent playing poker, I have felt that at times uh, the raw mathematical probabilities don't really match the reality of a scenario. Not to say that sometimes a coin flip seems as if it's like 90-10 or whatever, but
Yeah,
yeah, I just don't. It just doesn't make sense to me that there's not a little bit more agency and free will involved in these decisions, um, or these outcomes, I should say,
yeah,
and particularly kind of how one ends up in those scenarios. And I think that um, I suppose it seems to me as if the way in which you arrive in a particular spot in all in or what have you.
hmm,
Um, has some plays some role in the potential outcome of that. And I think it really just comes down to one's internal state of coherence. Uh, and yeah, I just very strongly feel that one's inner reality is reflected in the outer world. To what extent, I don't know, but I think that if some biomarkers can be isolated for and measured, maybe we'll learn something. Maybe some clarity will
yeah.
emerge. Time will tell.
Yeah, no, this is something I'm curious about because it's something I think about a bit too, and
Yeah.
even in my own self, where it's like I feel like when I just started I was taking off those first few months, I had a lot more like internal clarity, even though I was in a very strange place in my life, but I just
Hmm.
felt like that for reasons that would probably interest you, but I want to hold off on those for just a minute to stick to the immediate topic, or I'll branch off and we'll
Sure.
spend a long time on those, which is fine too. But first, but I felt like when I played, I don't know, I was just like on the right wavelength or whatever. I
Yeah.
feel what was going on, and then I was seriously injured and had to recover for a while. And I was grinding a ton then, and I was winning, and I was able to put enough volume to be a winning player, but it definitely wasn't the same in that regard. It was just more of the throwing everything there, and even today. I feel like I do struggle some with the with just feeling sometimes pessimistic that it's going to work out, and I feel like maybe that gets reflected sometimes either in
I
results
feel
or
that makes
play.
all the difference personally.
Yeah, and like it's like I know I'm good enough on one level, but like there's been several times already these last few years since I started playing again where it's like I'm getting to the verge of like sort of a big breakthrough in my bankroll or something where it's like, oh, maybe if I hit this, I'll have enough to play where I can put in the volume at the stakes to actually make a living and not find a job, which I don't mind doing, but they haven't really been working out for me so far. I keep getting laid off even though I've been doing it good at what I do. So at a certain point where I'm like, oh, why am
Maybe
I?
it's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, but I'm also like,
Rejection is protection.
yeah, and it's like, well, yeah, it's kept me from getting deeper and deeper in some of these things, but it's also been a bit like, I'm almost 45 and I'm still not totally sure what my thing should be, which is, hey, one reason I started the show. Maybe this will be it.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
let's hope so. But yeah, for all of you, you can see the link to the website and the Patreon at the bottom of this if you're watching on video. So please go check it out and make this a reality. Um, but
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
that said, yeah, but I feel like every time I've gotten to like close to the verge of that breakout here, I've either had some big life expense that I've had to take out money for, and then I can't move up, or just hit a big losing streak. Like that's what happened, in February or whatever. I felt like I was getting close, and then just lost like damn near every session I played that month. I had one that was like so bad. That's the other funny thing about I can get grouchy about losing for sure. Even not as bad as I used to be. I don't break things anymore, but like when I was in my 20s. But I do. There's been times where like losing's frustrating, and then there's times where it's just like gets to be so bad like you can't really do anything but laugh at it. Like I don't even remember because I track my results pretty thoroughly, and yeah, this day I had like I mean, obscene. Which day was it? There was a day in February where I had a negative, like I played a full session, I had like a negative 97% ROI. Like I
Yeah, I
cashed
mean,
in
in
like
a day, that's
yeah, I cashed in
not too crazy.
one tournament out of like 20, but just like got, and even that was like a min cash, and just got, it was like, well, let's go on this badly. What, what can you do? Nothing.
Yeah.
If it's,
What can you do?
it's frustrating when you're getting close to something big and take a bad beat or whatever. But when it's just everything's like this, like, all right, I guess today's not the day.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm going on poker again. I feel like the other thing is it's keeping up the confidence even after those bad days, to just be like, all right, well, maybe next time will be better. And then, the two things I feel like I'd still, even though I don't have another job, don't get enough volume in part because of that confidence gets shaken, in part just, I have other things I need to be doing, this show, spending time with my wife, taking
Yeah.
care of my physical and mental health. So I don't get to, it's not like when I was 24, I had no real other things to do, and I just play 50, 60 hours a week and whatever. But, back to that, putting in the volume, which is the other thing where I'm like, when I put in the volume, I don't feel as bad about losing because I know, like, the next day is just around the corner. When I can't put in
Well,
the
that's
volume, it's more stressful because it is like, I don't know when I'm going to get back on the table.
yeah, and I think based on what you're saying, I'm taking away that when you're putting in the volume, you feel less attached to the short-term results.
Yes.
And I think that feeling of attachment is quite detrimental to internal coherence, because you're clenching, right? You're like you're needing something to happen when you don't actually need it to happen.
Yeah.
And I feel that is not great for the nervous system, because then you're clenching, you're not in flow, right? You're not just kind of letting things happen and accepting outcomes as they happen. And it's a bit of a paradox in a way, but yeah, I feel that it seems to me as if the nervous system is a large part of this, where when you're upregulated, when you're in sympathetic, or when you can't downshift from sympathetic, I should say, because I do think sometimes in poker you want to shift up, but you need that malleability. When you're stuck in sympathetic, it's quite challenging to kind of turn up the resolution on the game and feel less of an experience of randomness and more clarity about your decisions, what's the right spot to aggress, when you should get out of the way, all those like subtle things. When when you're really locked in, you feel it. Anyone who's played poker for extended periods knows that feeling. And yeah, I just think that is, again, what I would like to bring clarity to. It doesn't feel like it should be that challenging. But I've thought that many times, and often it is much harder than I think. So again, time will tell.
No, yeah, this is great because this is, something else I wanted to. This is leading right into another thing I was thinking about. We talked about intuition a lot, and I'm a big believer in intuition and instinct, and okay, nope, I'm already talking about other stuff again. I'm like intuition and instinct, and I was about to get in a tangent of people who think they're logical and rational, but they really just don't realize they're logical and rational, but they really don't realize they're just rationalizing their own like emotions and instincts that they're not really in touch with. But that aside, one thing I feel like I struggle with sometimes in making decisions, lately is, or at the poker table is, the I guess some of it there's a fear of making mistakes or whatever, and not getting that confused with the intuition, the adrenaline's running or whatever. And is something telling me like, is this is this telling me, is this a bad decision because my intuition's, do I need to fold this because my intuition telling me he has it, or am I just afraid that I'm wrong and don't want to lose these chips?
Classic like signal versus noise, right?
Yeah,
And how to discern.
Trying to, exactly, and that's something I feel like I've struggled with somewhat. More than somewhat. It's something I feel like once in a while I get right.
Part of the game.
Yeah.
I think again, like when you're in a more relaxed state, when the nervous system is not upregulated and has that flexibility, it feels to me like that's what allows for the signal to be properly discerned. And then I think, again, like anything, it takes practice. Like, sometimes you do have to slip and fall a few times to get a sense of like, well, how did that feel? What were the impulses? And try to sort of grok it out through experience, where it's like, okay, that thing I thought was X was actually Y. And yeah, I just don't think that these things happen overnight. It takes time, and we're always learning, always trying to gain more clarity about these impulses, because they're happening all the time, whether on or off the table.
Yeah, and like it's something I've been trying to, figure out how to separate the two better as well. Especially tough like at the table because, I've been playing online mostly. It's like, oh, well, you have 15 seconds maybe to figure out which one of the two this is. That's kind of a lot of pressure to be under. Funny little story though, I was just thinking of because, especially because it's a hand I won, and you know how easy it is, when you're playing. It's a lot easier to remember the bad beats than the lucky times. That's human nature. I think evolved to like remember the negative so that we can avoid it in the future and live to pass
There's
on.
some benefit to it, but it's also nice to remember the good times because they're more pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you got to be I think it's just takes more effort to really put in to do that. But yeah, I remember just this one random hand I'm going to talk about. It's like, I don't know, open like it's fairly early in the tournament, right? I opened, I think, cut off with ace nine suited and like the small blind jam. I don't know, like 18 bigs or something. And part of me is like, this feels close. And then I was like, but maybe I overfold these spots. And my intuition's telling me I should call. So I called, and he had ace jack. But then I flopped the nine and won the hand. So that was just fascinating because like my intuition telling me because this is the right spot, because somehow I know I'm going to win the hand. So I don't know,
Yeah, those are great questions, and it's interesting. I felt something for quite a while playing live poker, where sometimes this is significantly more common with less experienced players, but sometimes when someone who's not as experienced opens the pot, sometimes you can get a sense of like a trembling, a nervousness, and uncertainty. And I remember this happened once in a tournament where they were like, I think, bet the river. And I was like, oh, I'm sure this guy is bluffing. And he got shoved on and snap called, and he ended up having the second nut flush, but his opponent had the nut flush. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I was like, maybe it's not always that someone is objectively weak, but maybe their subconscious is bleeding through their action, and that nervousness that I'm picking up on, or that uncertainty, is because a part of their being is aware of that. It's just not conscious.
Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps that's something that was at play here, where maybe you picked up on some, maybe your opponent was in that deeply pessimistic state where they felt like Eeyore, or they had the dark cloud over their head. I don't know. Again, I find all of this immensely fascinating, and I just think that over the coming years, whether by my contributions or others, we will gain more clarity on this, because I kind of see it as like this bridge between science and spirituality. Part of it seems kind of like woo-woo, but I think it's just because we haven't taken the time to quantify what is going on. And yeah, I just don't see any reason that science won't or can't approach these things.
Yes. No, that's a great example. And like, damn, you said a lot of things. I'm trying to like rapidly scribble.
I realize that anything I say, I'm giving you a million tangents.
I know. I'm like, okay,
which is great.
Which one do I want to follow up on first?
Use your intuition.
Just a quick funny story, I guess. Is I remember one hand. It doesn't even really count as it's just observation, frankly. But something like this where I ended up calling it out King High on the River. But the reason is, I don't know. It was at some like prelim event in the Poker Classic. I think 07, 08 were the only years I went. So one of those 2 years. But anyway, I have like King of Clubs, 10 of something in the I think the big blind. There's a couple limps that check. Board checks around, and the button, I think is the relevant guy in this hand, because like he's really uninterested. Flop comes like ace of clubs, 2 random cards, checks around, turns a second club, and like he visibly, at least visibly to me, I don't know who else was watching, perks up. when that second club comes around and checks and he bets and I call and the river pricks, check, he bets again. I'm like, well, the way this guy acted, I'm pretty sure he has a flush draw and the ace of clubs on the board and I have the king of clubs, so I must beat him. And I call and
Mhm.
I won and got berated for a little bit after that by him, but I was like,
That's always fun.
yeah, right. It's like, oh, what can you do, man? You had a flush draw. I beat all flush draws. I call. What do
Yeah,
you
it's
want?
like I read the situation perfectly.
Yeah,
What do you want from me?
yeah. I played it perfect. I don't know what to tell you, bud.
Right.
So that's always fun when that happens. Yeah. I did have a nice one like that this Sunday. Just okay. I don't need to just keep bragging about every hand I played because I'm getting the more in-depth topics than that. But this is fine. I just like it was. Oh yeah, it was like a six max. It was a bounty tournament, but we were deep enough in that that was not really as much a factor anymore. But I opened ace five on the button, small blind calls. I flop a five, but it's like third. It's third pair. It's like king eight five or something. Checks through. Turns another brick. He checks. I'm like, well, now I think I'm good. I bet. And he check raises. I'm like, this just makes no sense. And I think this guy's kind of on the aggro side. I don't know what he's. So I called. It was like a nine or something. He shoves. And I was like, call again. He just has like jack seven of clubs. He didn't even have a draw. I think he rivered a gut shot. So it's like, all right, well, again, reading the situation correctly, but
Yeah.
also trying to avoid it, being the things where it's just like trust read the situation and don't just play it safe. And I think
Yeah, I think that that is often a way that we cap our potential is by trying to play it safe. Like you get a big stack and you're like,
yeah,
okay, I'm just gonna like do everything right. It's like, that's not really what gets rewarded. You kind of need to be brave and bold in
yeah,
poker.
and like the other thing I think about is when we talk about playing it safe, a lot of it just means not making visible mistakes. Like one of
Mm,
the things I think about that I don't do enough for this reason, and I'm trying to do is just not bluffing enough. Because
mm,
if you bluff and you get called, well, then it's very easy to see that, you've lost some chips making a bet that didn't work out the way you wanted it. But, maybe you're not accounting for all the times it does work. Or, if you're playing too safe, you're not accounting for, other mistakes you're making that aren't as visible. Like, say, missing out on thin river value bets where it's like,
sure.
or even not particularly thin, maybe, where it's like, yeah, okay, so I still won the pot, so it doesn't feel like a mistake, but I could have won a much bigger pot if I played optimally. But you don't notice that because you still won the pot, right? So that's part of
Yeah, it's just
part of the trickiness. I think is just sorting out the difference between not just worrying about what's immediately observed, you get immediate feedback on, or as immediately observable as a mistake, and trying to
right. I mean, this just speaks to like the complexity of the game of poker and uh yeah, how much that might go unnoticed actually is quite significant. And I just wanted to mention, like on the topic of,
yeah,
not being aggressive enough or whatever, that's a fine line too, right? Because
right,
you don't want to like fetishize making these big bluffs where, you're just torching money
right,
because what it might make you feel. I mean, I guess sometimes it can be good just to kind of like take a cold shower and like blast off a stack because you just sort of need to break out of a rut.
yeah.
But of course, with any like consistency, it's not only will it not be an effective strategy, but it won't be particularly pleasant either.
Yeah, and exactly, yeah. Like that's one of the things where I'm like, especially for me, because I used to be a lot more aggressive in the old days, back when no, all of us barely understood theory, and there were no such things as solvers, and we didn't know, and it just worked until it didn't. Um,
Sure.
and at the same time, I think I play much more balanced now, but trying to, remember that you have to do that once in a while, not, be afraid of
Well, not that
mistakes.
you have to, but it can be effective, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to in the sense that like if you're playing a balanced strategy, you're gonna have some bluffs, right? Like obviously, and you have to.
Right, but situationally, you might not
Right,
always want to.
right,
Um,
yeah. It's not like you have to.
Depending on who you're playing against. Of
Yeah,
course, the
and
better the player, the more you want to meet that equilibrium.
right, and yeah, that's the other funny thing about where I'm playing now. It's I've been playing mostly on the Club WPT site, which I think is pretty good. The games are good, but it's also like I've been studying solvers and whatnot, and playing on some of the other sites I had been. You see play a lot more closer to that, or even raise that, and then it's like you have to adjust for things you're not. Say like what do you do when someone opens 4x or is open limping 70% of hands or
Yeah, I
just
mean, You can just rely on all your experience from
Call,
years past in those
yeah,
moments.
calls your 3-bet and then donk shoves the flop. You know, what do you?
Yeah,
I've
good
seen all.
times.
You know, so it's just like, yeah, how do you figure that? And so, yeah, and there's sometimes where I feel like even it discourages me from bluffing because it's like, well, I can make so much value from these that maybe I don't need to bluff as much. But
Yeah, I
when
mean,
you
if people
don't,
are just handing you their chips, then
yeah,
typically bluffing is a little bit less attractive.
yeah. But at the same time, you want to make the right decision every time, and sometimes it's still
Yeah,
right to bluff them. You know, especially
of course. And I think sometimes people are a bit averse to like
mhm,
bluffing fish because they
yeah,
feel like, oh, they're just a calling station, just kind of
yeah,
a blanket binary assessment.
yeah,
But sometimes the wider the range, right, the more they're going to fold. Maybe they call with like a weaker hand on average. Maybe their range is just so wide that you're
yeah.
able to target so
I
much of
think this
it.
is yeah, and I think actually this is. I want to say something. Sam, previous guest Sam Greenwood, brought up in one of his pun of the days was like, there are people think, oh, if he's playing such a wide range, then maybe then he could have anything. He's probably hit this board, and I gotta, but he and I gotta play more cautiously. But it seems like, well, if he's playing such a wide range, it means he has a lot more junk too.
Right.
So
Same
you
reason
just
that you're able to aggress against the big blind defending range
right.
a lot more than like when, middle position calls you're open.
Right, exactly, because they're just going to have, so much wider and miss so much more, and you have to keep that
Yeah.
in mind.
Or connect marginally.
Right, yeah, third pair, no kicker, it's
Exactly.
going to be tough to face down. Um, oh God, what was I gonna? Was it? It wasn't quite. Oh yeah, that's the another thing. We're talking about mentality, mindset. I think like, yeah, this probably plays into. I was gonna say, when you're, when I find when I feel like I have pressure to win is when I play at least good, and I play the best when I'm just totally detached from the outcome and have no need or desire for it. And
Yeah.
now we're getting into Buddhism, and maybe this will start steering in directions. We were planning to talk about the spirituality and whatnot, but my point is, how do getting back in that mindset where it's like it doesn't matter what happens. What matters is that
Truly.
I get in there and just, and another thing I've said of late, it used to be, back in the day, people had styles, oh, I'm a lag, I'm a tag, I'm a weak passive donk, because I just think that's fun. I don't know. But, people, people play strategies to those styles. I like to acquire a big stack early so I can play my lag style or whatever. And now, especially, just, I don't know if it's just the solvers or just, that I started playing again in my 40s and I'm more mature or whatever, but it's like, and hopefully wiser, definitely older. I just, it's the strategy. I feel like I kind of have no strategy in a certain sense, in the sense that all I do is, each time it comes to my decision, I try to make the best decision, whatever that is. And doesn't matter if
Yeah.
I'm not aiming for any goals to get a big stack or small, that I'm not, it's just what decision is going to make me the most money in this moment. And
For sure. I mean,
that's
this
what
to
I
me
try
it
to
just
do.
goes back to that same idea of labels,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you label yourself as something, I mean, even so, like I do think individuals have discernible styles
Oh,
and you
yeah.
can point out differences between uh the ways that people who may be similarly well versed in theoretical concepts and heuristics they're still going to have differences in the way that they approach things just
Yeah.
kind of on a human level. It's almost like a way that one's personality shows through in the game.
Yeah.
Perhaps the cards speak, one could say.
Yeah, exactly. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I see that, I still watch some of the, super high roller street and stuff just to see how they play. And yeah, there's some people who are, a little more, maybe a little more aggressive, more willing to 3-bet marginal spots than others, for example, or more willing to, run big bluffs that, you could do either way. And usually, when the spot's close or that it's mixed, people might have preferences or tendencies, but, there aren't as many, I don't know, just the total, I had a read, doesn't matter what my cards are stuff anymore, especially I guess in the high stakes games because like
It's a bit risky.
yeah, it's a bit risky, and also like everyone's has a certain foundation for their play that you're like am I even getting a good read on this guy, or am I
Yeah,
just
again, it's back to that same signal versus noise. Like
right?
how clear does the signal need to be to want to make one of those, Ivy versus Lex 5 deuce off type of plays?
Right.
You really need to be quite sure, because when you're wrong, the downside is so significant. It just feels like most players at higher stakes are not sort of so face up that you can, effectively garner that level of clarity.
Right.
I don't want to say it's impossible, because again, everyone's a human, and I do think that humans are susceptible to giving things away. But yeah, just like a confidence interval type of thing. Like, how confident do you need to be? Pretty confident. How confident are you typically in those cases? Usually not that confident.
Right. Especially if you're playing against great players. They're not. I imagine. I don't really play many 10Ks and above these days, so I imagine they're not. The regulars in those games are not the kind of people where you're easily picking up tells on them, or they're giving away information about the strength of their hand in some way or another, whether it's bet size or they always open an Oreo when they have it or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
movie-friendly
open.
visible tell.
Yeah, I'm open to there being a time and a place for any type of play. Um, I guess it's really just like how often one wants to implement that type of thing. Yeah, it's just risky. That's really all it comes down to. And typically with those riskier plays, the frequency with which one is presented an opportunity to effectively carry it out, it's not that often.
Right.
It's going to need it to be a very specific spot. You know, some confluence of factors sort of leads you to a conclusion where, like, maybe I could just aggress with any two here. But yeah, it was definitely much more common back in the day.
Yeah, and just people going on their reads and making heroic plays or what have you, and
Yeah.
you don't see it because people understand, I guess, that maybe it could work, maybe it wouldn't, but the downside is a disaster. At least if you're gonna do it, have something that you can still win if you're wrong. The
Yeah, I guess
ace five
that's
suiteds and what have you. That's why.
right. You expand somewhat linearly beyond the, quote unquote correct or theoretical range.
Yeah. Um. Pressure to win, mindset. Getting in that mindset, and I guess I'm like since like I said, I kind of struggle getting in the mindset of not pressuring myself to win too much, and thinking about how to get back to that, and that was sort of. I don't remember what I was going to follow that up on with, but we've talked about. I guess because this is a couple things I want to talk. We talked about spirituality a bit, and so I'm curious, and I'm sure you've probably talked about this a bit over the years, but if you just want to give us a run, like sort of what was your journey in that regard to sort of where you are now and how you get there and what took you there.
I initially found like different Eastern philosophies. Buddhism as reference, Hinduism, Taoism, which is still probably my favorite. I love the Tao Te Ching. Just really speaks to
me too.
My preferred way of living, I suppose. It's just so poignant, so simple, yet so profound. And I think to that point, that you're raising in terms of like how to find that flow, I really think it's just about having fun and again doing things for their own sake. I think the decisions sort of sort themselves out when you're just having a good time, because when you're having a good time, you're more likely to have that nervous system flexibility, you're more likely to increase the internal state of coherence, and the resolution or clarity of your decision making is just likely to go up. And that's just me speaking from experience. When I'm kind of firing on those cylinders, I mean, I don't want to say it's easy or entirely effortless, but it's a lot more so. You're still playing a challenging competitive game against people that are trying very hard to beat you. But for me, that's sort of the most effective way to approach things.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think, especially what you're saying is just, remember to have fun with it and just stay.
Yeah, because if you're not, like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is something I've, I talked about actually this week with my therapist, and one reason I, sometimes I struggle to put in the volume is just like, if I lose, then there are days it feels like, well, why did I even play? I could have done so much other things with this time. And then it's like, even if it all goes great, I mean, it'll be great to have big wins and then not have to worry about anything. And then, be financially set enough to just worry about, having a family and doing what I want with my life. But the point is, even when you win, sometimes it does feel like, it's just money. And whether we get, the satisfaction of playing the game or being really good at it or winning, ultimately, for me at least, there's a certain sense of, well, what do I want to have done with my life when it's all said and done? And I feel like if all I
That's a
did
great
was,
question.
yeah, I feel like if all I did was make money, then I wouldn't really be, satisfied with that. And then on the other
No,
hand,
you'd likely be lacking some fulfillment. And I
exactly.
think what you're mentioning speaks to like a broader point of trusting the way your life unfolds. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say that that's a faith of sorts. But for me, it's just like, yeah, just a trust that, like, hey, the universe has your back. And like, if you just do your thing, like, it'll all find a way to work out,
Mm-hmm.
not in an entirely whimsical way. You still do have to make calculated decisions and engage with
Right.
the world around you in an intelligent fashion.
Yeah,
But
you can.
just trusting that, like, there's going to be good things that will happen if you just stay the course, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I was just gonna say, yeah, you don't really want to like drink a fifth of whiskey and drive down the strip at 90 miles an hour. And be like, the universe is gonna figure this out for me.
Yeah, and that's where
But
these types of things like can get misinterpreted,
hmm, yeah,
um,
you can't just go.
or discarded.
No, I agree. You kind of have to be giving like a good faith effort towards something. It's a couple things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think about too because there've been times. I guess on the one hand, uh, I'm sure you've probably heard of Pascal's wager, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like not that per se because again, okay, for the listeners who may not know, although I'm sure you're all intelligent people, so I'm wasting your time explaining this. Intelligent and handsome. That's where we are at the Card Speak podcast. But he had a wager that if anyone acts sincerely, like they have faith for a year, then the gift of faith will be given to them. And I don't know if that's true or not, or if it even means anything other than you're just convincing yourself of something. But what I have noticed is like if you have a goal or something you really want to get good at or figure out, and you work on it sincerely for a year, you usually end up getting what you want out of it. So, I guess Pascal's labor camp or something. I don't know. But yeah, and so like similarly, I felt in my own life, there have been some ups and downs, some goods and bads, a few very bads. But for the most part, as things have sorted out, I've always kind of felt like sometimes I get frustrated that things I wanted to happen didn't happen sooner, but then sometimes it's like maybe it really just happened right when I needed it to happen. Sometimes I mean sometimes I get frustrated that things some of the things aren't better, that I didn't manage my poker money better, that I had to I got badly injured and I've had to have a lot of surgery as a result. And then sometimes I'm like, but what happened to it? I've had a better relationship like that. I met my wife. I'm living somewhere I love now, and sometimes
Yeah, it's better to focus on those
wonder
things.
why
And
I
like,
didn't move sooner. But yeah,
I'm human too. I understand like,
mm-hmm.
that feeling of frustration, but it feels like indulging in it often just compounds the negative
Yeah,
emotion. It doesn't like lead you towards the preferred state of being, which leads you towards the preferred life that
ex-
you're, seeking.
exactly. And like until we figure out a way to break the bonds of linear time or whatever, it's not like I can go back and change those decisions. That's
No, but you can
that's
change the
where they are.
emotion associated with them,
Exactly.
which is
Yeah.
really what matters.
Right. Yeah. It's all about where you are now and where you're what you're trying to do in the moment, and
Yeah, because
I
I feel
guess
like when
that's.
we keep the sort of negative emotions from those
Mm-hmm.
past experiences churning,
Yeah.
it's almost like we're recreating the downside effect in every moment.
Right.
Like we're sort of held captive by it in a way.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You're sort of living in those moments instead of the present one, and also the
Yeah.
negativity where things are better now. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, to that extent, I always was fond of. Well, I say always. I have become in my adult years fond. I think that's the old Irish proverb: "The may the road rise up to meet you at your feet." Because
Hmm.
in the good, in the good time and the big decisions, and when I've needed, I feel like sometimes I feel in life I don't really often get what I want, but I always get what I need. And so there is a
Ain't that the truth?
yeah, and so there is a bit of like, when I really need something changed and I sort of step out, into the unknown, the road rises up to meet me
Hmm.
and give me
Yeah.
somewhere to land my foot.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I can
So
very much relate to that.
yeah, so in some ways I feel really fortunate in that regard, even if not everything is what I want it to be. And so again,
Yeah.
similarly though to that, it's like I'm trying to, yeah, I think one of the other things for me is trying to keep an open mind about that stuff and,
Mm.
listen to the universe as to like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Am I struggling with poker because I need to adjust my mindset or because I'm supposed to be focused on something else? I don't know. And those are the sort of questions I weigh sometimes. And
Smart. I mean, being receptive to sort of the signals and impulses that life gives us back. Yeah, that's wise, I believe.
yeah, so I'm just
Certainly.
trying to, certainly.
Oh, certainly that's how I approach things.
Yeah. And, I'm just, yeah, I think trying to just, yeah, exactly. Be open and see what happens and what comes from it. Yeah, which is why I'm also like, well, maybe I am supposed to be doing poker because I don't. Yeah, like you said, maybe it's a blessing. I don't have any other work right now, so I can focus on doing this and that. And then it's like, well, I mean, yeah. Sometimes I would, like I said, I would get frustrated if poker was the only thing I had in my life, but it's not. And at the same time, it is like, well, I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to be doing or not. I know it's
And there's kind of no like supposed to really. It's your
yeah,
life and there's trade-offs to every decision. So it's kind of
right.
just like what speaks to you. No one knows better than you.
Yeah, and I think for me, yeah, and honestly, it's part of the reason I started this show. It's like, I think I might be a good interviewer. Let's find out. And
Yeah. Yeah,
have
totally.
conversations and like, but yeah, then the poker thing, it's like, yeah, I wouldn't be happy if it was the only thing, but it is, on the other hand, there's certain things you don't really get anywhere else in life. Like, this is something Sam brought up last episode, was just, as an adult, there really aren't a lot of arenas to like compete
Mm.
anymore. And so like, the competitive satisfaction and the sense of winning, or just sense of pushing yourself against tougher competition, seeing just how good you are. Not something we get once we stop playing high school sports or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting. I've thought a bit about that, how I think a lack of healthy competition
mm-hmm,
can sometimes lead to an unhealthy expression of competition
mm-hmm,
where we start to kind of like, you know, villainize our neighbor or whatever. And I get that, like, in the US especially, it's a very like tense political climate, but it
yeah,
feels to me like I don't know, things don't have to be so cutthroat in all cases.
right.
Sometimes it's, like we both grew up in a time where having different views was more accepted. Um, and I get it's different now. Like the landscape is different,
Yeah,
but I do think that yeah, healthy competition can be very beneficial
yeah,
for yeah, just finding that outlet to express that desire as
mm,
opposed to, maybe it comes out when, it's not as optimal.
yeah. Well, yeah. Some of the things you're saying is why I don't go back to my hometown very often.
Mhm.
Just that kind of, yeah. Everything's somehow a competition, and it's everyone's looking to find a way to argue or fight, take offense at something, so they can
Yeah, it's just
over
not a
silly
pleasant
stuff.
way
Yeah,
to
yeah, and
interact.
I just, yeah, I don't like being around that behavior, honestly. So I don't
Yeah,
go back. And
they're
yeah,
lost, right?
yeah. Well, that's what I think, but they don't seem to care, which is a bummer. But you know,
That's okay.
that's okay. There are plenty of people who do, and I got to the. Hey, Jesus, I don't want to put too many of these people on blast in my family, but I'll just say I have. I'm not going to name any specifics, but yeah, I have some family members who are kind of like judgmental or petty, and it's like I've spent 40 something years hoping y'all would like and respect me, and at a certain point, it sucks that you don't, but I'm gonna put my time and effort into the people who do, because there are plenty of
Yeah.
people who like and respect me, and I would rather see them, whether or not, even if we're not related, at least, they know who I am better, certainly. And so it
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, I just remember, someone, oh, this is gonna, oh, they're not listening anyway. Who cares? Like, yeah, I don't know if I want to talk about this, but I'm like, they're not listening. I'll just say that some member of my family, and I have a pretty big extended family, so I won't say who, but was talking to my dad's girlfriend, not long before he passed away, and she was telling this person, how much, she and my dad were in love, and that they finally, found something nice, which is great. My dad had been divorced twice, and
Hmm.
I guess they'd started dating, and couldn't have been that long after second divorce because he passed like less than a year and a half after that one, I think. But anyway, she's talking about that, and this person is like, and I'm listening. You're like, oh, so you think your relationship's better than mine? And I've been married for so and so long, and we have so many kids. And yeah, I was just like, it's not a competition. It's like I
Right.
wouldn't.
That's just such a crazy
Yeah.
way to take something. It's
All
like,
right.
how
That's
insecure do you have to be to feel like it's a personal attack when someone tells you something good about their life?
exactly. Yeah. Like it would never even have occurred to me to think of it that way. And
Right.
I,
That's to me, that's just kind of sad because that's just an indication of that other person's unhappiness.
yeah, and it does, and it is like, yeah, it's one of those things I struggle with because I'm like, I want to have some like empathy and compassion because, right, I don't think, yeah, like you said, people who are happy and well adjusted and stuff, and happy with how their lives are and content and feel fulfilled and secure don't act like this.
No, they don't even consider it.
So like, I don't want to be too harsh on them and bury them. And at the same time, I'm like, I would love to help you, but my experience in my nearly 45 years of life is that y'all don't really listen to me or take me seriously on anything important.
Right. And if someone doesn't want help, then you can't
Yeah,
control
so,
them because that's not healthy
right,
behavior either. And it just is what it is.
yeah, it's like I can't help you. And, like, sometimes, it does make me sad because I'm like, we have better relationships. But, at this point, I feel like the fact that we don't isn't my fault. So,
No,
and
no.
hopefully that'll change someday, but it won't. I spent, I am quite different than most of my family, and I grew up in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which you may or may not have heard of. It is a oil refining town in southwest Louisiana, mostly known for oil refineries and a couple of casinos. It's about
Hmm.
2 to 2.5 hours east of Houston and about three and a half west of New Orleans.
Is that how you
Uh,
got started playing cards?
kind of. I got started. Well, really, I got started playing cards at all. Like yeah. There's a lot of just card playing and gambling, and I didn't start at those casinos, but a lot of card playing and gambling, and like the culture and where I grew up with my
Yeah,
family.
makes
Like
sense.
I, we used to play card games all the time. Progressive rum, or we called it continental rummy, progressive rummy. I used to play. Until my grandfather passed, summer of '93, I had every Sunday. My grandparents would come over to the house for dinner, and then me and my mom, and my grandparents would play bridge every night,
Hmm.
or afterward every Sunday. So that was cool. Yeah, I got into games early, and really, I started playing some poker in college. The boom, Money Week was 2003. That was right at the right after my senior year. So we started playing some regular games with some friends. And then another friend of mine wanted to put a little money online and be like, "Yeah, I think you're good. Let's do it." And we lost $25 three different times, and then the fourth time we ended up getting on a heater, like the Poker Room cash games. If you remember Poker Room as a site,
Yeah, I
and
do.
yeah, and then in 2 weeks we'd run it up to like 8 grand.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it didn't last, and eventually I had to get a job again. But it was like, okay, well, look, that's possible, right? I could do this, I think. So that's when I started buying the books, going to 2+2, studying, and then about a year after that was when I had my big breakthrough win. Like I chopped one of the old Stars Nightly 11 rebuys, if you remember those,
Of
for like
course.
almost 10K, and then it was like 24. I paid like $300 a month in rent. I don't need a job anymore. I'm making $10 an hour at my job. I just made like 6 months income. I don't need this shit. So I'm just gonna do poker while I can till that runs out. So that's kind of how I got started. Um,
Nice.
hey, as long as we're on the topic, how'd you get started? Because this is one of the basic topics I do want to ask people. Is but I'm like, because I want to find out, how our backgrounds influence how we get into poker. How
Hmm.
we grew up, what our folks do, and the ways. Because some people, got into it. The boom. Some people got into it from like a more finance guy perspective, where they realized they could make money. Some people are more like me, where they realized where I like playing games and don't like work. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
I have
think
to
I
be
was a little
boss.
bit more along those lines.
Yeah. So
I
yeah, go for it if you want to
yeah,
tell us a
I
little
was
more.
I was kind of always into games as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, around the time I found poker, I was playing a lot of Blizzard games online. So like
Okay.
Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, World of Warcraft, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Those horrible
And
games.
I was working at a bowling alley. It was my first and uh, I would say only job. I did have a very brief stint working at a radiology facility putting records into the computer, but it was very brief because I was already kind of pretty focused on poker.
Yeah.
But essentially, at the bowling alley, my boss and the guy who ran the pro shop, who would drill the bowling balls, like put new finger plugs in and all that, they were splitting action, playing 2 for a limit, trying to hit the bad beat jackpot on party.
Okay.
And I was like, huh, what's that? And they told me about it. And this was around the time that poker was starting to become popular due to the boom.
Yeah.
Moneymaker was either shortly before or shortly thereafter. And I kind of just got swept up in that. My dad helped me put some money online. And that was kind of it. Once I got going with it, friends of mine were then gathering to play after school, various days throughout the week. One guy ran like a multi-table, multi-house tournament,
Ooh.
and yeah, it was pretty popular in my town,
Nice.
and I just really focused on it. And I remember thinking, okay, like I'm already really adept at games and I enjoy them, and this is a game where I can make money at it and I also enjoy it. So, if I focus on it and I get good, it does seem like skill can prevail. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the turning point was really after I had attended college. I was going to Stony Brook University. I only went for 3 semesters. I remember towards the end of, I guess, the second semester, maybe early in the third, I had this math professor. He was kind of a goofball. It was one of those giant lecture halls.
Yeah.
And I remember just sitting there thinking, because I was commuting, so I would go to college, I would download Full Tilt, play for like an hour in the library, and then go to class. And
Yeah.
I remember sitting in that lecture hall thinking, kind of along the lines of, your experience. I was like, I'm probably already earning about as much as my professor, and I'm pretty early in this.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I just shouldn't be here. And I didn't have a major,
Yeah.
and my grades weren't especially great. I remember I got called into the guidance counselor's office, and they were like, "So you don't have a major? You're, 2 semesters in. Like, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "I think I'm going to pursue poker." And they just looked at me like, what is this kid talking about?
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, they can't force me to do anything. And I kind of explained to them,
Yeah.
but it was like I was speaking Chinese. Um, and yeah, essentially that was it. I just kept going with it. Like you mentioned, 2+2. That
Yeah.
early community was really such an incredible place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Met a lot of great people,
Resources.
and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of great information was around. So
Yeah. A lot of people I still consider friends and who have done
absolutely,
extraordinarily well for themselves.
yeah,
Which is great to see.
it is.
Yeah, that's also why I'm interviewing a bunch of them because they're the only famous people I know. Built-in audience. That's actually not true. They're the only famous people I know, but the ones who will do this and give us a built-in audience. But yeah, to your point, not that I want to get too deep into the inner workings of the show. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of for me. It was I had a little job at a law firm. After this was after I made the money. We had that hot run. I ended up getting a job, and I was making $10 an hour, but I was just like not even a paralegal. It's just like mostly a guy who did like copywriting, advertising. It was It was a very small personal injury firm, so I do a lot of like copyright and advertising. Sending out mailers, setting up websites for people who've been affected by mesothelioma or Vioxx or whatever. And then I spent a lot of the time playing at my job, playing poker and burning CDs. But then yeah, I just deposited $300. Didn't do it. Took me about 4 months of not doing well. In fact, ran down to nothing basically. I remember running it down to a $5 tournament ticket that I cashed for 25
Well,
bucks. Ran up in sit and goes to like 100, and then was that the next thing I did? It was like, and then in another feat of bankroll management, entered a $10 tournament and won it for like 800, and then the next week won another one. So like, okay, I have kind of a bankroll now. I can start playing, and I kept the job, and then bankroll was probably 3K that October, and I chop that stars rebuy 10K. I was like, all right, this is what I'm doing now. I don't have to. I'm not working anymore. I'm buying my own laptop finally instead of borrowing my roommate's computers all the time or doing this at work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I kind of glossed over it, but I did lose for about a year and a half
yeah.
playing online. I mean, it was, again, like anything, had a learning curve, and
Oh yeah.
I, just had to acquaint myself with the game and,
Sure.
Trial and error.
Totally. So I guess another thing, like, I'm curious about is like, yeah, we were talking about the game. Before that, is there anything in your background, your folks, like, what do they do? Where are you from? Because I actually don't think I know
I
exactly.
was
Although I did
born
just.
in New York City and
Oh,
grew up on
cool.
Long Island.
Okay.
We moved out there when I was in second grade.
Okay. Right on. I did
My
just learn.
father ran a machine shop for many years, and
Oh
my
wow.
mom was a nurse at a radiology facility, hence that
Okay.
brief stint I had inputting patient records.
Yeah.
But there was no like semblance of gambling or card playing in my family, really. Although my father did very much take a liking to it and often had some advice for me in key moments where, like, why'd you play that hand? Or
Uh-huh.
really, like, threes? Come on, Andrew. Like,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Hmm. I that's funny, yeah, because my dad kind of the same way where like I didn't like when they first found out this is what I decided to do. Most of my I don't think they would say it to me directly, but were kind of skeptical. But my dad thought it was really cool, and he always had a bit of the gambling bug in him, so he was always really
Hmm,
supportive of me and like, yeah,
that's cool.
that was nice. Yeah, nice to have someone in my corner, and yeah, ended up working out pretty well for me for a while there. And when you're making enough that people realize, yeah, it's like no, I have a $20,000 bankroll. This is more money than I've ever had in my life at this point. By
Yeah, the success speaks for itself. And
like,
both of my parents were very supportive, but it
yeah,
took my mom a little while longer to kind of get her head around it.
right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it was just also like, well, I'm not doing anything else. This seems to be the because yeah, in college, my college experience wasn't quite like, but it was similar. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be like computer science major or something, and then I got there and I'm so far behind everyone else because they were all gone to these like really nice in East Coast private schools or wherever where they taught coding and already know several languages. I'm like everything I know is self taught, and my high school had one computer class, and even then, it was like a freshman class that teach you, yeah, like business applications, like you know, not I was like not Word and Excel, but the stuff that used to exist before they started dominating, like stuff like Lotus 1-2-3 and Word Perfect, and
Hmm.
which were already kind of out of date at the time we took them. But yeah, so it was like there's no opportunity for me to learn this other than what I can learn my own, and it was not enough to keep up with them, and I just got overwhelmed and kind of floundered for about 2.5 years just guessing, and then I took a writing workshop, and then which I was still nervous about because I was always when I was younger very nervous about opening up to other people being vulnerable anyway because at least in my first 18 years of life it didn't really work out for me very well when I
Hmm.
did, even with my own folks. But then, like, I found I did that, and people really liked it. I was like, well, I really didn't expect people to like my storytelling that much. Maybe
Probably
I'm
felt
just
really rewarding too
it did.
after that
Oh yeah,
stint of depression.
yeah, it was great, and it felt like okay, like people actually like when I do this, and I like doing it, so maybe this is what I should do. And so I ended up just taking a bunch of writing workshops, and for a couple reasons, not even really poker related, I have to admit. I could lie and rewrite my history because it would make more sense that way. It's like, yeah, I dropped out a year short of graduation because I was making so much playing poker. That's not why. It was more mental health than finances related. But I eventually I went back and took the rest of my classes in 2012. So and I have an English degree, but also yeah. And then I spent when I dropped out like the end of '03, spent close to a year just kind of floundering until I started figuring out the poker thing and getting a job. So yeah, it's funny. It's all these circuitous because I'm always curious, yeah, because we all come to it in such different ways, and it's
Yeah.
such a unique game that like it contains so many aspects. Yeah, it's a game. It's a highly mathematical game, but it's also a psychological game, and that's the game at the table. They learn away from the table. How well do you
That's what
manage
makes
your
it so
life?
compelling. It has
Yeah,
all those different elements.
yeah. I think it's a beautiful game. I think it's one of the most perfect games humans have probably ever invented because it's just such a great balance of math, psychology, people, luck. Your own psychology, that
Yeah,
of others, and just keeping that. Yeah, and so like I don't know, there's something really satisfying about being good at it, and also that I think it helps us, in other aspects of our lives because it's so
big time.
yeah, there's so much into it that I feel like reflects just life and the human condition and things you want to be good at. Even understand things like understanding risk and decision making, and
Oh yeah,
you
that's a
know
big one.
yeah, and for me it's funny because I I think of one of my friends who is not a poker player, but is he's more of a businessman, but he is pretty risk averse in general. But for me it's not about for me I think, or maybe it's even just change averse. Whereas I'm like, sometimes the bigger risk is keeping everything the same, or I'll make a huge change in my life if I think it's the right one to do and not be worried that it's a huge change, whether that's you know my wife or just moving here. Even it's kind of we're just ready to leave Houston, and probably have been for a couple of years now. And where do we want to go? That we know somebody who can help us get there. And I had a friend here who's since moved away, but went with him, found a job, and now things are great for us. She's in a whole new industry that she's doing great in. She actually works
Nice.
at the casino, one of the casinos up here now.
Oh, cool.
Which I don't think she was. Which yeah, that only started last May. So when we last saw each other, that was not the case. But yeah, she's really enjoying it. She manages the gift shop and visual design. She's enjoying the hell out of it. It's a lot better than what she was doing. And then now I'm the one trying to find what the hell I'm gonna do. I feel like that's a lifelong process. I was like, sometimes I envy people a little who I feel like just, I don't want to say are simple people, but like they know what they want. I'm like, they know what they need to be fulfilled, and they're doing it. And it doesn't take much, but a couple things where I'm like, I don't know, how am I gonna be good at poker and do the show and write my memoir and get good enough music to write my songs and have a marriage and have a family and take care of myself, and how am I gonna do it all? I don't know.
You'll find a way.
And then I freak out and
We always do.
watch TV or something. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hoping.
That's the self-imposed pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And so, right, and the irony is like that. Sometimes when you impose the pressure on yourself, that makes it harder to do any of those things. Whereas,
Correct.
like the thing I find is, yeah, you pick one and then you do it, and you go from there. And even if it's just the one thing that day, or like I said, there's so many things. Oh, Sunday I'll play poker. Monday I'll go work out. Tuesday I'll record a show. Wednesday I'll write some music. Thursday I'll play again. Friday, yeah, just trying to making sure you're actually doing one of the things every day, even instead of just I'm feeling over. Well, and that's okay to feel overwhelmed sometimes too, but
Yeah,
you don't want to make that a state of being overall.
agreed.
Then it's just like, oh, I'm going to watch TV and play video games and try to forget how stressed I am. And
Can be fun every now and
there's
again.
time for that, yeah, but not something I want to do with my life entirely. Um, what else? And this has been pretty good. I feel like though we've always only scratched on a couple of the yeah. I almost want to come back to some of the spirituality stuff and one of the related thing because like you, I feel like so yeah. The couple of things you mentioned, Buddhism, especially Zen Buddhism, was kind of influential on me. The Taoism, especially so. I felt like just yes, but well, I feel like Zen helped me get in a better mindset. Tao speaks to me about like what the world actually is, or what the universe is. There's the duality and the fact that there's the name is not the name, and there's all this stuff we don't know. And yeah, I used to. I bet I still have it somewhere, but I think I've gotten a new one since then. I had a little pocket copy of the
Oh, cool.
Stephen Mitchell translation of the
Best
Tao Te
one.
Ching, and yeah, totally. And I think I used it so much, I think the cover wore off and fell off. But I'm sure I have one somewhere around here. But yeah, that's always been. And sometimes it's just something you gotta, it refers to me whenever I feel like sometimes I like to do that with that or the Zen stuff where like I feel like my mindset's slipping or I'm losing that sort of connection to the source or what have you.
Yeah.
Just to go remind myself. And I don't know, it's the weird thing about that stuff is yeah, it's not really necessarily a logical thing. It's just sometimes just reading the words just can have the like effect on you to flip the switch or put you back in the right place. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I
here,
think a lot of the deeper truths in life kind of lie at the heart of a paradox.
mm-hmm.
And um, yeah,
Yeah.
there's some aspect which I can relate to with what you're saying, that it's not purely logical.
Mm,
I mean, it's transcendent in a way, right?
yeah.
It doesn't fit within the same parameters, but I don't think it's
Right.
illogical either. It's
Right.
just a different mode of perception.
Exactly. Like I feel like it goes beyond logic and all. Like a cone, like a cone, for example. There's no like logical answer. It's just what you find the answer when it clicks for you, I guess, and that's not really any other way to put it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this gets to what I was talking about earlier. It was like around my 24th birthday, I really started to get heavy into some of this stuff, and also more into like psychedelics and stuff that I had previously been. And
Which can go hand in hand.
yeah, and they did for a while, and I felt like I was really getting to something. I feel like I saw a lot more than most people see about what's under there, and then I don't know. At some point, though, I feel like I hit the wall, and this is something I get into at length. Maybe I'll save this for a bonus episode. We can talk about, what what I've seen underneath. But and then that's kind of snapped back, and then all the other stuff happened, and it's like, well, I guess I'm here in the world again. I got to kind of, and I thought I was going to take off to space or the other dimension or what have you. I don't know, but didn't quite get there. But it's such as yes, but it's still like
Never say never.
right. Yeah, it ain't over yet. Um, but yeah, there's so many things like that where I just can't even explain. It's a struggle to explain to people, what the experience is like because
Yeah, that's
again,
always the case.
so much of it's perception, but when you're really in tune, it does feel like, your thoughts and your mindsets like you say, or when it's a reflection of the inner as the outer, it's like, yeah, there are times where I really feel like it's like so directly as to be uncanny and a little unnerving.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's where I've as much as I appreciate Taoism, I also find Hermeticism quite
oh
fascinating.
yeah,
And they have these principles,
I'm feeling that way.
one of which, or I think the first of which, is all is mind. And it's just that basic idea that essentially your external reality is not external at all. It's a projection. And yeah, that just helps me clarify some of these more ambiguous or seemingly ambiguous things. Like, okay, if it's just a projection of my consciousness, doesn't mean that there aren't other uh, free agents, autonomous conscious beings,
Yeah,
but my perception of them is self-created.
right.
And yeah, I just am always looking, I guess, for ways to restore agency and feel, uh, more capable, more possibility,
Yeah.
um, to be able to, make choices. Because I think that's one of the great things that being human affords you, is having free will and being able to make choices for
Oh,
yourself, such that you're not, condemned or constricted or held within a rigid framework that someone else has prescribed. I just think that that's marvelous.
yeah, 100%. Like, I think, and especially about the choices thing, and just, yeah, that we get the chance to, yeah, that, sometimes they're, circumscribed by life or whatever. I don't want to, I feel like some of it's a luxury we have, living in a place where we're not like born into, slavery or having to be a child soldier or
Yeah, I
whatever.
mean, once you
But,
have your Maslow's sorted out,
right.
then you can, proceed in that
I,
fashion. But of course,
I,
yeah, not everybody throughout the course of human history
right.
has had that luxury.
But yeah, having that, and that's yeah. To be frank, that's one of the things I felt. Recently is like I feel like only in the last few years am I finally getting there because I really feel like some of them especially just feeling I guess the security more than anything that like and stability.
Mm.
Our relationship is good, but like whether or not I'm making livings up and down in my community, I have some good friends. I have some people who are not so great. And I just like I needed to, and part of it was getting here. I'm a big believer too. In wherever you go, there you are. Like you
Big
can't,
time.
yeah, you can't, like, moving is not going to change you. You know, just changing your surroundings won't change you. In my
Yeah.
case, though, it did actually change a lot. I feel like it's like moving won't solve your problems, but it might have solved like half of mine.
Well,
And
if it gives you new opportunities and
yeah,
affords you experiences that the previous area you're living in didn't have, I
yeah,
mean, it's not that the place you're living in itself is different. It's what it means, like, how you interface with it. And that's,
yeah,
of course, can be significant.
yeah. And I think, man, when you put it like that, that's a lot for me because it was just just like being here and just the opportunity to be somewhere new and somewhere I like going outside, which is not true in Houston. And also just, when we were talking about the self earlier and like, people, who know me 10 years ago might have or 20 years ago might have a different impression of me based on that than who I really am now. And, I feel like, in some ways, I was feeling too much obligation to be the previous version of myself because of, the community and the social scene I had. And, just getting away here allowed me to, grow the way I wanted to without any sort of external pressure to be otherwise or people that, want me to
That's
be
important
different than I want to be.
and healthy.
Yeah. And so I think it's done me a lot of good in that regard. And I forget why I got on this topic in the first place. Oh, we brought up Maslow's. Yeah, I really didn't know much about Hermeticism. You brought up mind, and now I'm trying to
It's
think
a
of.
bit more esoteric.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, got some like occult roots or associations, but
Hmm.
I just think, much like Taoism, a lot of it is fairly pragmatic.
Yeah.
There's a book, The Kybalion, which is written by the quote unquote three initiates. And I think that's a fairly clear way to interpret
Hmm.
what is being expressed
Okay.
through the philosophy.
Yeah. Damn it. I should have taken better notes because there's something I wanted to bring up about mind and mindset. But yeah, like, a reflection and so much is, oh yeah, yeah, so much is perception. And not only in the sense of, you might even mean in a, yeah, like our mind could really help us literally shape our world, but it's also, just how we react to events and what we think of, and not to
100%.
get
How
too
we
high or too
deal with
low.
things and interpret and ascribe meaning is much more significant than the event itself.
Yeah, you may have, what is it? Is it the parable of the farmer? The
Yes, the
Zen guy
Chinese
wrote.
farmer.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
know, I don't know if our listeners know it, but it's one of my favorites. Uh, no, not the sower. That's a different one.
I can try to
I'm talking the Eastern one.
recount it by memory, but it would probably be better if you read it verbatim.
Yeah, well, I would also. I'm trying to find it, but yeah, it's not quite verbatim, or it's not quite as I remember it. But okay, I found one. And okay, they use maybe. I always preferred how do you know if this is okay. And now this
Mm.
website's giving me a pop up that's trying to get me to download some malware, and that's not happening. Anyway, so once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. And his neighbors came to visit him and said, well, we're so sorry about how your horse running away. It's what a terrible thing to happen. And, his response is, how do you know if this is a good or bad thing? Then the next day, the horse comes back and brings a bunch of wild horses with it to join, the man's stable, and everybody says, "Oh, how lucky you are to have that your horse came back and brought up the others. What a, have so many horses. What a great turn of events for you." He says, "How do you know this is a good or bad thing?" The next day, the man's son is riding one of the wild horses, and it throws him, and he breaks his leg. And the neighbors say, "Oh no, that's such a terrible tragedy. Your young son has broken his leg. How unfortunate." And he says, "Well, how do you know it's a good or bad thing?" Then the next day, a military officer comes by the village to conscript young men into fighting someplace hundreds of miles away that no one, probably not hundreds of miles back then. That would take a long time. Anyway, far away, some fight for the nation or whatever. Whoever China's fighting at this point, and because the son's leg is broken, he can't be conscripted. And the neighbors again, oh, well, that's so fortunate that he doesn't have to go to war. And again, they says, how do you know this is a good or bad thing? Or even did Shakespeare say the nothing's ever good or bad, but thinking makes it so? But yeah, it's the same thing. Like it's
Checks
all
out.
perceptive, and it's even something you don't know whether it's gonna work out. Even things that seem good might work out and not in the way you want to in the moment, and seeing the thing bad might turn out to be necessary.
Right. And I guess the
That's something
deeper
kind of.
truth there to me is just to always give things positive meaning, because why not? Like, what's the downside?
Yeah.
And I get that that can feel insensitive in certain cases. Um, but I'm just looking to be pragmatic about it, and yeah, just sort of empower oneself, or one's community to just respond in the face of adversity with what seems to be the most effective mechanism. It's
Yeah.
like, sure, in the face of tragedy, there's nothing wrong with grieving,
Sure, of
but
course.
the perpetuation of that feeling, again, it just feels like one is sort of held captive by a past experience. Um, Finding the positive meaning within it, identifying what it is that you come into touch with, uh, or what you have to face within yourself that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. I just think there's always some jewel or gem to unearth within those challenging experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just speak from my own experience, without getting too specific. There's some very specific things we'll say for subscribers when we talk about these. But no. But this is, I mean, because it's pretty personal.
Mhm.
You probably know this. I mean, I think everyone at 2+2 know this by now. That I was in a pretty serious accident at the end of 2005. That was pretty awful. I had a bunch of surgeries, reconstructive surgeries. I'm in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I've had to. It really messed me up. Like I had to, yeah, I still not everything kind of fits together quite right. I still have a lot of residual pain from it, and mentally it was like kind of a big sort of, I don't know, dividing line. I've struggled to keep that. Part of the reason I feel like I've struggled since, and even like the things we talked about on Wavelength, is just getting my own mind back in one piece has been a real, rather than sort of fractured things I'm trying to hold together, has been a real challenge. And so that all sucked. But on the other hand, there's some good that's come out of it. I mean, it really helped me rebuild my relationship with my father, since my parents got divorced. He wasn't around a ton when I was a kid either, because he was working or avoiding work. There's a whole story. If you listen to the first episode, I covered this, listeners. But yeah, he so it allowed me to reconnect with him, because he really took care of me when I was in the hospital and afterward. Um, it burned off some of the things I didn't. I'd always struggled with not just a I don't know, not just lack of self confidence and self worth, but a certain like fear about everything that
Mm. Getting closer to death can help us confront those
I mean,
fears.
yeah, it's like after going through that and coming out the other side, it's like, what do I ever have to be afraid of again? Like, there's
Yeah, it seems
nothing.
trivial in
Yeah,
comparison.
nothing's gonna happen to me that's gonna be as bad as this. So what am I scared of?
And the
And
reality is that you just simply would not be who you are today without
mhm.
that. That's a significant part of your life.
Yeah, and I think just some of it too was having, I don't think for reasons we'll get into another time, or we can have a special Patreon episode to talk about, my interstellar journey of 2005, because it's a lot of detail, and it will take a long time. But part of why I bring that up again is, like, I also kind of think so this wouldn't have happened, if I'd had more of a, like, the path that led to this, kind of had a lot to do with not standing up for myself, and again setting my own decisions and going with whatever other people wanted. And I think that's just because I had that lack of self-worth or sense to stand up for myself, and nobody in my life really stood up for me either. And so kind of, I would not like to learn that lesson a little bit of an easier way, but it's like, yeah, you do have to
Yeah.
stand up for yourself. You do have to have a sense of your self-worth and self-confidence. And I yes, and I think I definitely do now. And it's I mean, everybody uses self-deprecating humor once in a while, but it seems to be like I just bring this up because I see it a lot on the internet, where it seems to be the default mode of some people, and I'm like, no, it's not for me, because I'm like, if people didn't know me, they might think I sound arrogant, but like, no, you don't know how hard I had to work just to like build this self-confidence. I'm not gonna like let go of it to make people I don't know feel more comfortable.
Well, yeah, and the jokes can start to become reality if they're repeated and someone doesn't know that they're a joke.
Yeah, or like, if you start to believe, even if they're just jokes, if you say them enough, you might start to believe them about yourself. And
Also true. Yeah.
so for me, it's just, I know how far I've come and how hard won, my self assurance and self knowledge was, and I'm just not gonna. And I don't care if it makes other people uncomfortable because, like,
That's not your job.
yeah, like
You're
that's
just
not,
being authentic. If someone else has an issue, it's
yeah.
their issue.
And I'm generally, and yeah, the flip side is too. It's like at this point in my life, like I feel pretty good about my social skills, about being aware of other people's feelings, how they're acting, and how to like interact them. And I think honestly, that's speaking of one of the other great things about moving up here is getting out Houston. I feel like I just get a lot more opportunity to just like chat with strangers, and that's been really
That's
cool.
great.
I just love doing that. I just like talking to people, and I
That's
like,
spontaneous. It's fun.
yeah, and I like leaving people feeling a little better afterward for having done so. And I just get a lot more opportunity to do that. And anyway, the point is, I feel like I read people pretty well and know how they're feeling and thinking or reacting to me or even what they need sometimes. And I generally, accommodating, giving person socially. So like, if there is someone I make uncomfortable or doesn't like me or whatever, it's like, okay, well, I don't need
Yeah, life
everybody to
goes
like
on.
me. Like, yeah, you're one person. I don't need everybody to like me. It'd be cool if they did, but that's never been the case. And even the best version of myself, they probably won't. I've always been a little bit of a niche taste, and that's okay because like the people
Yeah,
who do,
totally.
I'm really close to, and I have a lot of great relationships as a result. But yeah, so it's
Well
like
said.
I'm not basically. In other words, the short version is, folks, uh, don't let other people's discomfort with or criticism of you, uh, don't let it give up your positive qualities, the things you like about yourself. Very,
True.
yeah, simple lesson, I guess. All right. Anything else? Oh, I don't know how much longer you have to go on. I can keep going.
I
We've
would
got plenty.
prefer to wrap up sooner as
Okay.
opposed to later.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to. There's only. We can save that too if you want. The only other thing I have written down here, just one word: aliens.
Yeah. So I mean, I saw an alien
Yeah, tell me
in
about this.
2013.
Yeah.
I had
So.
watched a documentary that day.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Thrive about ET cover-ups, government
Mm-hmm.
programs, etc. I got really fired up. I felt like angry and betrayed, and I was outside my backyard that
Yeah.
night, laying in the grass, like, "Come on, space brothers and sisters, show yourselves. I'm ready." And nothing happened. I went to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and as I'm laying in bed, I feel this like buzzing, like an electric fence is nearby. And I open my eyes and I see like an orange flower of life, these concentric circles
Hmm.
overlaid across my entire field of vision. But it was somewhat opaque to where even though the room was dark, I could still make out the features of the room, the walls, the
Yeah.
dresser, etc. And
Orange, huh?
then if I closed my eyes, I was still able to see everything, which was extremely interesting. It's like
Yeah.
my mind's eye and my physical eyes were perceiving the same, again, quote unquote, external reality.
Yeah.
So that happened for maybe a couple of minutes. And then the flower of life got even more opaque. And then at the foot of my bed, an ET materialized like a little
Wow.
gray alien, just kind of like what you'd expect, the big black eyes. And although that was what I was asking for, it actually happening kind of sent me into a state of shock. Like I
Sure.
wasn't hyperventilating or anything, but it was just so it was so confronting because
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing to feel like, okay, there's some truth here and I
Mm-hmm.
want to experience it, and it's another to then be face to face with it.
Sure.
Um, so then I
That's.
kind of just dozed off and obviously sent me down a rabbit hole of ETs and aliens, which yeah, I find immensely fascinating. I think we're kind of on the heels of getting some more societal clarity about
Yeah.
because it seems disclosure is not just with those programs, but just generally uh, within the power structures in our government and other governments. It seems like there's a lot coming out over the course of this year,
Yeah.
or at least the past few months, past year or so. And that's exciting because I just think a healthy society needs to be at least somewhat transparent with things that
Yeah.
are quite significant. and would alter the course of human history, human perception, decision making on a macro level. So yeah, I'm very much optimistic and eager to just have more interaction with other civilizations.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Like, yes, exactly. I'm like, yeah, it would be very cool. Like, I agree with. Well,
And
first
it
I'd
will
say,
be.
yeah, I agree with the both your things. Like, I would love to interact with other civilization, and we do need more, transparent truth. The truth. Oh my God, I almost said the truth is out there. That's the X Files, but I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, I just think, yeah, I agree with you on the transparency and just, yeah, letting people know what the truth is, and trying to find out what the truth is on even a deep existential level probably drives me a bit, and I imagine you too.
Very much so.
I
Uh,
will. Sorry, go
yeah, I was gonna say, I think that there's sometimes this
ahead.
sentiment that's tossed around, which kind of infantilizes the population, where it's like, oh, people can't handle this. And it's like, okay, maybe they'll be, like I experienced, somewhat of a state of shock.
Yeah,
But what's the alternative? You just lie to people for the remainder of their lives, for the remainder of the time that Earth exists. I mean, this is just not a sustainable way for a healthy population to
yeah,
interact. It just creates a power imbalance where, you know, some group that's decided that it's not in the best interest of the collective to know about certain things does know.
hmm
Um, I don't know. It just seems kind of deeply immoral to me
yeah,
on many
yeah,
levels.
and and I think also to a degree of, I would say it's reflective of another thing I think I feel about life is like it's the desire to do that by them, to keep the public reflects, I guess I would say, a degree of, thinking a need to control and thinking you can control a lot more than you
Absolutely.
can, because I find that when you try to control more than you should, it rapidly spirals out of control,
100%. Yeah. And it's also how conspiracies are born,
Yeah,
of which some are obviously true
right.
and some are fabricated. But it always begs the question, like, okay, if X, Y, and Z government, bureaucratic systems, organizations are going to lie about something, why would they not lie about something else? And of course, it's a completely valid question to ask.
Yeah, and then sometimes you get the people, and these things are true, but that's the thing. Like you were saying, like you think, you don't understand what the benefit is of not telling people or thinking they can't handle it. It's like, well, yeah, if you don't tell them that, they still, like I said, like we said, they still have this sort of, I feel like, vague sense something's not right, something's not true, that there's
Yeah,
something
well,
that they,
especially when there's personal experience to go along with it. It's like,
right.
okay, I'm probably not the only one.
Yeah, but then, like some people will get into, conspiracy theories, like you said, that are not true or can be actively harmful. Like, if you, bring an automatic weapon to a pizza place or whatever, for example, using recent history. But like, so it's like, well, how much worse can the truth be? I mean, it probably is not going to lead people to shoot up things. I mean, they do that already. So,
Yeah,
what's the holding back? I guess I'll
yeah,
finish, yeah, with I don't know if my experience was aliens or not, but a little different than yours, where I felt like, I guess this speaks to the doubt, like there's that stretch I was talking about, what it culminated in. It feels like there was always people, like there were always hidden meanings and messages under the surfaces. I was seeing, I don't know, I started seeing this blue light a lot in people
hmm,
in other ways. And then there was one night, it was granted on a lot of drugs with a couple of the friends I'd been doing this with, and it was like one of them was standing there, like turning some invisible knob in the sky and adjusting. And then when like it all clicked, it's like you were talking about hearing an electric fence, and it's like I feel like I could see it and I could hear that it had been turned off, and like the whole sky
hmm.
just looked like this, like sort of like hexagonal grid, like. And then he told me to look inside myself, and the blue light was like right there in my, literally navel gazing. And that's where it's not, because like I felt like I was supposed to go through, but that's where the fear came in, and I couldn't. And I don't know how much of this is real or perception or what would have happened, but who knows? I felt like I was on the verge of
Well, what is
something.
reality if not perception? But that's
Exactly.
pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's one of the things where I'm like, yeah, we can save this for in detail for another time for sure, because this would be fun to get back to. And you're one of the few people, especially in the poker world, I think, who talk about it and not immediately think I'm completely nuts.
No, I mean, I've had so many unusual experiences. And again, this is why I have these um, somewhat, I guess you could say, controversial views, whether it's, luck, intuition, or what have you. You have a certain number of experiences that run contrary to what the collective consensus is about a variety of
Yeah,
topics.
reality.
And it's like, okay, if I think I'm a critical thinker and I'm looking to find more truth, at a certain point, I kind of don't need to ask anyone's permission. To your earlier point, I'm like, I know for myself that I know for me what's true based on my own
Yeah.
experiences, and then it's just a matter of uh, trying to bridge that gap between uh, yeah, I guess the individual and the collective, but to a larger extent, just science and spirituality. Because I think that mystics throughout time have expressed these controversial views and always found resistance from whatever the institution is of the time, the church or what have you. They get labeled as heretics, and I just don't see that they're really that different. And
Yeah.
I like the idea of unifying these apparent opposing forces, but I think they're a lot more similar than they are different. And to that point, I would even say that it feels to me like they're just two sides of the same coin. It's just different ways to look um, at an experience or a phenomena. Uh, but yeah, it's the same thing. It's just being viewed from a different perspective.
Right, and I guess one thing I was just going to throw in real quick to throw it back is talking about my upbringing and experience there, and it's like one thing I learned, especially because of how much people talk about each other, is just to not trust anything I don't see or hear for myself. Like you said, perception is reality, and so at the same time, when I do see or hear these things, it's like, well, it must be real, at least to me. Maybe other people aren't seeing or hearing it, or their experience is entirely different. But what does that matter? And I'm not crazy. I'm not, I'm not like, I haven't broken with reality as far as I can tell. I'm still very
Yeah.
observably, I can still very easily observably fit into, what we consider society and our shared objective reality. So it's not like I'm, that far up, but, probably seen things I don't know if anyone else has, or
Yeah. Well, it just reminds me of
nobody
one of
can
my
explain.
favorite quotes from Joseph Campbell, which
Yeah.
is the mystic swims with delight in the same waters which the psychotic drowns. I think it's such a poignant example of
Oh, I like
how
that.
it's just how you deal with this, like, um, yeah, this experience where it's like, okay, I'm for whatever reason being exposed to things that I can't fully articulate
Mm-hmm.
or quantify.
Mm-hmm.
The psychotic has no means of articulately describing or communicating to any extent, right? They're just
Yeah.
sort of deemed as like an outcast.
Right.
And the mystic is someone who can bring forth some level of clarity and truth and is
Some.
typically maybe not adorned, but appreciated.
Right. I feel like, maybe that, maybe that would have been my job in an older, more tribal society, the mystic or the
Maybe
shaman.
you are still a shaman.
Yeah, yeah. How do we get that? How do I get that to my maximum power and
You
influence?
gotta tell everyone what the cards are saying.
Yeah, yeah. If I could get to that, yes. Well, maybe
I
you're
actually
right. I need to
have
figure out how to develop this. But
I went down a fun rabbit hole at one point, and I learned quite a lot about tarot and the Kabbalah and
yeah.
how these systems are intertwined. And this was kind of how I um, loosely related to Hermeticism in some ways. Um, but then I was like, oh, wow, the playing card deck is actually quite similar to tarot. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I will look to discern meaning from the cards in a symbolic sense in that way, which is more fun than anything, but it can actually be quite insightful at times.
Yeah. I don't. I've never looked at. I was gonna say I never looked at the tarot that much, and then I realized I bought me a couple of those posters you can see on the back, and that orange background one looks like it looks like a king, but he's drinking wine. Which okay, he's got every damn suit on his coat, but he's drinking wine, which made me think of the King of Cups, which I do know
Ah,
is a tarot card, and I never
yeah.
put that together till this moment, but. Who knows? Maybe there's some meaning in that even I don't understand yet.
Yeah, I
I
just think
say even,
all of
even
these
more
things
I
have
don't
some
understand.
meaning. And I just think all traditions, religions, whatever, they're all pointing at some truth. It doesn't always
Yeah.
have to be the same, but there's often overlapping aspects to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even gets to something I obviously thought about a lot because I'm, I get inclined to think of, the whole nature of existence and the universe, but also like, yeah, I feel like every religion, like we said, my favorite, our favorites are similar in the, Buddhism and Taoism, but like, I feel like all of them, have something of value or at least something that points to, what the universe is or how we should live in it, etc. I feel like maybe the Western ones focus more on the latter, how we should live in it, teach you Jesus,
And it can be
how
more rigid in many ways. I mean, that's
yeah,
why I like Taoism is it's very I guess inclusive of
yeah,
like freedom. Like it doesn't say what you can or can't do. It does
yeah,
give, I guess, recommendations. But this is the issue with any framework, right?
yeah.
It's you want it to be structured enough to give you some uh kind of clarity or rules of engagement, but you don't want it to be so structured and rigid that it feels constrictive.
Yeah, exactly. And I've never been much of a rule follower. In part,
Yeah, poker players tend not to be.
yeah, and like I was like, yeah, growing up, I grew up in a pretty religious family. Mom's super religious,
Well, that's furthermore the
Catholic.
reation that if it wasn't enjoyable, you're naturally going to rebel against it,
Right?
right?
Yeah, yeah. It was Catholic, and it was just like going to church all the time and stuff. And it was like I never felt it there, like I have with you know those the ones we mentioned or nature or drugs or what have you. But it's also like like I've never been big on following all the rules they make for themselves or living like that. But the teaching of Jesus how to treat other people, I think, is very good advice.
Yeah, I think Jesus is awesome. I
Yeah,
don't know about Christianity on the
yeah,
whole, or to what extent he would even really
rec-
uh, agree
recognize it. Yeah.
with it on the whole. It just seems to me like there's probably been distortions over time, the way that biblical text was
Oh
interpreted
yeah.
or implemented.
And
Um,
yeah, and
yeah.
oh, definitely, and like that's a whole other topic. But it's just like, yeah, yeah. But things like simple like that, how to treat people, or like you know, even I don't really have much of these. But I think Islam is a big emphasis on like discipline and devotion. Judaism, there's a lot of
I love the Sufi mystics,
yeah,
Ibn Arabi, Ibn Sina. I don't know if you're
yeah.
familiar with any of these guys, but
Not really, but
really interesting.
yeah, okay. I'm gonna look into that
Rumi,
and
of course.
Rumi. Now that one I've heard of. Uh,
Jalaluddin Rumi.
Now I'm trying to remember why. Must be some.
Just a well-known poet.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Still so much I don't know that I even or don't know that I
Well,
don't know.
all of us, brother.
Yeah. And like, but the other thing to say,
Start talking about music again. You'll quickly realize how little I know.
all right, music. Okay. Hey, what have you been listening to lately? You heard about the new Olivia Rodrigo album?
No, I missed that one.
Yeah, it's coming out in June. Actually quite like her. Probably my favorite of like the big stars right now. But yeah, or like there's a Judaism. It's got a lot of I feel like traditionally like wisdom scholarship, and there's a lot of tradition and ritual, and ritual is not really my thing, but it's kind of cool they've kept it going for this long, or just like
Yeah,
desire for
absolutely.
knowledge. It's important desire for knowledge. To be committed to what you do, to treat people well. That's a lot from the West. One little anecdote I'll finish the religion part with is the other thing is, yeah, I have a really religious family. South Louisiana is super Catholic, although sometimes it gets inflected with other things like, the Creole voodoo traditions, for example, or, just sometimes in my family, a little bit more eschatological Christianity, preparing for the second coming, the end times type stuff, which, as far as I can tell, hasn't happened yet. So I think we're okay. But
I think
so
we'll know if and when.
yeah, so
Perhaps it is the landing of aliens and open contact with them.
yeah, like yo, what's up?
Yeah,
What y'all doing?
the end of an era,
Yeah,
beginning of a new one.
it'll be like ET in the sense of like I'm just gonna give them a bunch of beer and see what happens. Like that scene where
Something tells me they might not want beer.
I was gonna say, what is that? Isn't that? I think God, I haven't seen ET since I was a little kid, but I think there's that scene where like ET is drinking beer, watching TV, and Elliot's like, they have the empathic connection. Elliot's like getting drunk, if I remember it right. Okay, but the last anecdote I was going to say. So there's a lot of that, right, where I'm from. Even in my family, there are a lot of people in like the religious orders, right? Like I think 5 of my grandmother's siblings did. Three Jesuit brothers and 2 sisters of Saint Joseph. And the ones who were still, a couple of the brothers died before I was born. But we'd go visit. They were the nuns in a convent in New Orleans, and we'd go visit them, somewhat regularly, like once a year or whatever. And they were always just the most nicest, selfless people. Just live to serve and try to make others' lives easier and happy.
Which is great.
Yeah. And then I get home and I'd be around a bunch of people who were, egotistical and self-aggrandizing and thought they were, exalted because they believed or whatever, because they thought. And so I think part of the reason that religion never stuck with me was just like seeing how vastly different these 2 groups of its adherents behaved. It was like, well, obviously following it isn't like the thing that makes, the good person or the type of person I want to be, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm just going to figure out what does. And turns out it's a combination of a lot of things pulled from a lot of places.
As it often is.
Yeah.
Life is nuanced.
Mm-hmm. And fascinating.
Very much so.
Best game in town.
Well said.
All right, bud. I think this reaches a good stopping point, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
That was fun.
Yeah, it really was. Me. Absolutely. Thanks for coming. I hope to do it again because I feel like there's so much we just scratched the surface on.
Yeah. I mean, with anyone like your good self, the conversation could go for hours, if not days on end.
Yeah,
but it's good to put a pin in it and not get it all out there.
Yeah, I think we did a pretty good job. Anything else you want to tell the audience or that you have to promote or want them to know about or anything at all?
No, just my website, I guess, luckychewy.com. I do one-on-one coaching, but I try to be pretty selective with the people I work with because I really want it to be worth their while, and I do charge a reasonably high price point. But I write a number of blogs, and those are free. So if anyone's interested in some of my thoughts, perhaps some of the blogs will be of interest as well. And then I have the ChemSet app, which is sort of a counter signal in a way to a purely, I guess, Western mind, focused on non-local intuition, where you're guessing cards and getting scored for doing so. But that's just fun, also free. And yeah, it was really just an enjoyable project for me to put to use some of my graphic design abilities that I developed in high school.
Nice.
And then also share something that I kind of knew would be provocative, but the extent to which I did not anticipate.
Nice. Hey, sometimes you got to be right. There are a lot of...
Yeah, it's authentic.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes...
I just try to be consistent.
I'm not one of those people who says, if everyone thinks you're doing something wrong, maybe you're doing something right. But, like, sometimes you're on the right thing and it's new enough and different enough that...
Right, and some people absolutely love it, and that was, nice to see as well.
Cool. Good. I need to check it out myself. Okay, well, yeah, thanks a lot. And for me, if you're on the video, look at the bottom. If you're not, CaptainNate.com for my own website, patreon.com/CaptainNate if you want to support this show and get more things like early access, submit reader questions, maybe, down the line. So some of these long episodes, we'll save some for some bonus content for subscribers, although right now, trying to give these out for free and hopes y'all will enjoy them and come check it out and help us keep going. Oh yeah, and by the way, there were no reader submitted questions this week. If we ever get to that again, we'll I think we're very early in the process. There are not a lot of really subscribers, so eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Andrew. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
You bet. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.